Hey, hey, hey. And we're back. We're back on the Daily Jase live show. It's been a while, actually. It's pretty cool to be back online. The reason I'm back is because I had a few people in this past week hit me up about saying, "Where's your show going? What's happening? What's the buzz? Why are you not posting anymore?" So I thought that was a clear sign to get my A into G, get back online, get back rocking and rolling, jump on the live, see what happens, get some guests on the show. Today, it's just me, but this is a show where you can jump online if you want. So here's the deal. I'll put a link in the comments, and then anyone who wants to jump online, they just have to click the link and then they'll be on. So then they can say what they want to say. They can add their 2 cents on any topic they want. Just click the link in the comments, and then you'll be live as well, and we can have a yarn. But what has been happening for the past probably 4 months, I haven't been online, so it's been pretty awesome, pretty crazy, a lot of stuff going on. Life has been pretty exciting. So over the Christmas break, I was helping out with the Army. So we had a bunch of new recruits roll on through over summer, and I was helping to instruct and train them up. So that was pretty awesome. It's awesome to be involved in such an intense learning and training experience. I guess you take a bunch of people who don't know very much at the beginning, and then you see them develop over time and see how well they take on board all those learnings. And it is an intense course. And then out the other side, you see them fully trained up as your basic Army soldiers. So that's been going on. That was all of summer. Wicked times. Learned lots. It's not just a training environment for the recruits, but it's also a training environment for the instructors. So we're learning all the time. Everyone gets to put their leadership skills to the test. So that was most of summer. I did have a break over the New Year's and Christmas period, but most of my time was caught up with the Army. So that was summer. Rolled back into university about a month ago. It's safe to say it's been pretty intense. It's been awesome time joining med school. There's a lot of talk about med school and the build up towards it because it's such a competitive course. A lot of people don't make it into the course. I actually took 10 years to actually make it into the program. I tried after my first year at university, didn't make it. And then I did a whole degree. I did sports science up in Auckland. Really loved my time up there, learned a bunch of stuff. And then I tried after graduating, didn't make the cut again. I sat this test called GAMSAT. It was pretty gnarly. We had 9 hours of solid testing. They test our logical reasoning and pattern recognition, our emotional reasoning, and also deep science like physiology, anatomy, all the rest of it, just to see if we were up to scratch. And the funny thing about that test is they don't actually give you a mark. They give you a percentile at the end of it because you're competing against your cohort. So you don't know whether you have a smart cohort or a not so smart cohort, but at the end of it, you get a percentile of how you did against everyone else, and then that's what the med schools use to decide whether you're going to make it through to med school or not. So that was about 4 years ago. I didn't make the cut then, and then I reapplied a couple of years ago to Otago Medical School and managed to get on board with it. So quite the journey, but med school, it's an interesting course in the fact that it's structured very differently from the other courses at uni. Anyone who's been to university will know that you pick a bunch of papers and then those papers are quite discrete. There might be some overlap, but in terms of their testing and how they run those papers, they're run by the course coordinators, and you get tested within that paper, and then you get discrete grades for the different papers, and that all adds up to become your GPA. With medicine, it's totally different. So you get into the course and you only have one paper. That paper runs the whole year. For me, it's called ELM2, Early Learning in Medicine 2, and then you get a bunch of different topics, but all comes under the umbrella of one paper. So we've got these block modules like musculoskeletal system, gastrointestinal system. So there's all these body systems that we learn, and then we also learn these what are called vertical modules. So they overlap with different with the different block modules and interweave with each other. So that's things like physiology, pathology, anatomy. So there's the hard sciences in there, but then there's also a lot of holistic stuff like ethics, or there's also we have Maori Health Week where we go and learn about the Maori culture, because a lot of our patients will be from those populations. So it's quite a holistic course. I've only been in it for a month, but overall so far so good. There's highs and lows in terms of what's interesting to some people and what's not, and because everyone comes from different backgrounds, different people in the course have different strengths and also different weaknesses, but that's where we come together and we hopefully pick each other up on our weaknesses and build on our strengths. So it's the other thing about medicine is there's quite a lot of contact time with the lecturers and tutors. So on average, we probably have 6 or 7 hours a day of learning, and that's face to face. So we're in class, we're doing our learning, and then we also have these tutorials where we discuss what we've learned. So it's different in that regard. It's very integrated. It's very you come together with your collective knowledge, and then everyone builds from there. If you're joining us just now, this is the call-in show. So if you want to jump on, just hit the link in the comments and we can have a yarn. But otherwise, I will just spill what I've been up to over the last 4 months. So that's been going on. Medicine, it's an interesting course. Early days yet, because I've still got about 5 years to go. But first month so far so good. I did have my I guess my doubts about whether it was the right thing, because you take on quite a lot of you take on board that you're going to be in this thing for 5 years, right? So you put everything else on hold for the most part, because you're going to spend a lot of hours in the books. You're going to be learning pretty hard stuff, and there's going to be sacrifices along the way. They said on our first day, treat this like a job. You are now in the medical profession, so you have to turn up when your lectures are on, when your tutorials are on. Anything that you need absence from, you need to inform someone. So it's not like other courses where you just expected to learn the content at your own steam. You can't just watch the lectures online. You're expected to turn up and then mix with the class and also the lecturers. So in that regard, it's quite a communal feeling going through this course. But yeah, that's me for the next 5 years, jumping into this course. So that's medicine. I've also got global games happening in the background. It's been an interesting journey over the last 2 years, because we obviously COVID hit the events industry pretty hard. So for those of you that don't know what global games is, we aim to give thousands of children every year from across New Zealand and the world amazing sporting experiences built on a foundation of fair play and sportsmanship. So it ticks a lot of the boxes for me. It gives all these kids an amazing experience, and jumping into sport they love. They get to go away with their teammates and also their families. They get to have a wicked time in an amazing location, and then they come away from it with awesome memories. So it ticks all the boxes. COVID last year, it caught us off guard a little bit. We obviously it was a surprise to everyone, but especially in the events industry. Unfortunately, we had to cancel all our events and all our projects last year. That was a bit of it was pretty gnarly. We had to strategize on how we'd get through last year, make sure that all the stakeholders were understanding of what we're doing. We had to reach out to the community that supports us, all the players, all the coaches, managers, all the clubs, and make sure they knew what was going on and come up with a financial strategy so we could at least float ourselves for the next 12 months. And who knows what's going to happen this year. We're heading into our events. They're in September, so they're about 9 months away. Oh, sorry, 6 months away. But the whole thing about this COVID thing is you don't know when it's going to flare up. So you carry on like it's going to be all good, but who knows if we'll get some variants in the community again, like we did in Auckland. But it affects the whole country, you know. We have our players coming from all around the country and even overseas. Prior to COVID, we had people from Ukraine, South Africa, France, Australia. Who else? We had America also. We had people from all around the world traveling into New Zealand to our events, and then COVID happened and we had to cancel all that. So COVID, it keeps us on our toes, let's say that. If you're joining us just now, we are live and you can jump onto the show. All you have to do is click the link in the comments. That's what kind of show it is, but otherwise I'll just yarn and people can watch. So yeah, Global Games is ticking along pretty nicely. We're very lucky that we have such a strong following and community. Whenever we open our events up 11 months prior to giving everyone the experience, we always have wait lists within 2 weeks, which is amazing because not every event has that. So when you're running an event, you rely on people coming so that you have a bit of income. People pay for the tickets or for the entry, and then you give them the experience. But if no one wants to come, you don't have the income and you can't actually build up the event. We're lucky in that regard because we have such a strong following. So a lot of events have shut down. Just talking to other people in the events industry, I know that it's been pretty tough for a lot of people, but yeah, you have to come up with a way with how to move forward. We didn't have it so easy, but we're pretty lucky in the regard that we are quite a small organization. We're very nimble. We rely on a lot of voluntary work, a lot of people in it because they love what we do, which is amazing. And we also love what we do. So in that regard, our overheads are quite minimal, and saying that our costs are quite high to run the event itself. So the thing we can adjust is hopefully our income, but if we can't get that income coming in, then because we're so nimble, we can still keep our heads in the game and we can carry on. And all of us are remote. We don't have offices, which gives us a bit of freedom, but also keeps those costs low. So we're very lucky in that regard that we are still able to operate. None of us really lost out because of COVID. It just meant that we just had to put our thinking caps on how we would move from there so that everyone was satisfied with what we're doing. When it comes to events, it's all about communication. We have a lot of people who we interact with, stakeholders, contractors. We have a lot of teams who come on board. We have about 160 teams coming along this year. So it should be one of the bigger events we've run or event seasons we've run. So that's just between the 2 events that we normally do year on year. So that's our New Zealand Junior Rugby Festival in Taupo, and then we've got the New Zealand Junior Rugby Festival in Queenstown. So their 2 weekends back to back. Our team enjoys it a lot. We get to see all our friends again who run the events with us. It's like a family, you know. We all live in different parts of the country. We all have our own lives. And when we come together for the events, it all pops off. Everyone knows what their job is. If we've done our job properly, then there should be minimal work at the event itself. Everyone gets stuck in and has their own little job that they do, but on the whole, if nothing should really go wrong if we've done the foundation throughout the year and in the lead up to the event itself. So that's Global Games. We'll see what COVID holds for us over the next wee while. We are watching the news very carefully, as with everyone, but especially being in the events industry, you never quite know what's going to happen. It definitely keeps us thinking. So that's uni, that's med. Also, I'm helping out with one of the university halls. It's pretty mega, Selwyn College. 200 people live there and live the student life down in Dunedin. It's very interesting comparing student life down in Dunedin to that in Auckland. They're starkly different. The infrastructure of the universities are the same, but the culture around what goes on in student life and how the city is built is extremely different. So in Auckland, you're in the commercial centre of town, and generally students live in the suburbs and they bus their way in, or some of them live in the halls and they walk to uni from central city generally. And then if they want to have student events, sometimes they hold it around uni, but there's a few different campuses around the place and they're about 20 minutes to half an hour apart. So quite different from Dunedin, where you have a whole suburb that's completely student flats, North Dunedin, students have a way about the place, you know. They take over the town a little bit, but Dunedin fosters that culture, make sure it's safe, make sure that they have the university experience that they want while having oversight from the city council and the university. There's initiatives in place to keep it safe for everyone so that then they can have the university experience and get the education that they want. And they're normally down here for 3 to 5 years, depending on what course they're doing. So there's quite a transient population. People come in February to start their courses and they're out by November. So North Dunedin turns into a bit of a ghost town over summer, and also the inter-semester break as well. So yeah, Dunedin and Auckland, very different. I'm glad I went to Auckland first because that sort of built the foundation of what university life was about and like for me. So had the 4 years doing sports science, but now down in medicine, down in Dunedin at Otago Medical School. So starkly different. Learning lots around the place. It's also interesting coming into university for a second time after having some time away. You just notice things, and it's a lot less stressful. You know how university actually operates. You understand how the university runs things, and you come at it with a different perspective. Nothing really catches you off guard. If you need to do something, you get done. It's also, the learning's a lot more enjoyable. You just have a different way of thinking. Like, I'll give you an example. If you think about where you were 10 years ago compared to how you think now, it's probably starkly different. You know a lot more, you've experienced a lot more, you've tasted a little bit of life. So it's the same with university. You just come at it at a different angle. So you can say no to things you want, and you can say yes to other things, and you can also take the things out of university that you want. So the university infrastructure is pretty amazing. There's scholarships, there's clubs, there's networks. You can go conferences, you can learn about research, you can take papers that you want. When you're going through it for the first time, you're almost learning as you go about these things. But when you approach it for the second time, you know all those things. You know what university has to offer you. You come at it with a different expectation. So you join the clubs you want. You have the work that you want. You often have the resume that allows you to get into the jobs you want. So it allows you to just have a more holistic experience rather than learning on the go. So yeah, university, it's a good time, but you need to, one, understand how it works, because if you don't, it can seem a bit fast-paced. You can get swamped with all the content and the systems, and it's a bit overwhelming for a lot of people when they first start out. There's a lot going on. There's events all the time. There's different clubs, but if you understand the way of life and how it rolls, then it's a lot more comfortable. So that's what's been happening in my world. Yeah, it's definitely a good experience. Just changing tact a little bit to what's been happening in the news recently. The last 12 months has been absolutely crazy. There's been nothing like it. We've all heard it before. We have to come at things with a different angle. There's no individual, business, community, region that hasn't been affected by this all. But well, I suppose everyone has to hunker down, and they have to get through, and they have to support each other. There's a lot of people who are doing it tough. There's been multiple news articles about it. It's everywhere. I just think that we're extremely lucky to be living in New Zealand at this time. I keep opening the paper or reading the news online about what's happening in Brazil or Europe, and thinking about how many deaths and how quickly they need to roll out the vaccines, and then they find different variants, and those vaccines may not work against the variants, but it's too early to tell. This thing is moving so quickly through everyone's lives that it's almost they're building the plane as soon or after it's already taken off, which is pretty crazy. There has been pandemics in the past, but I don't think there's been this global response to it in such a huge capacity. Who would have thought we wouldn't be able to travel 2 years ago? I've actually got to make my way to Israel as soon as the borders opened, because my brother had a baby, so I need to make my way over there because I haven't met my nephew yet, and he's almost 1. I think he turns 1 in May, if memory serves. But yeah, there's heaps of different situations like that. There's many people who haven't seen their families for a while. There's many people who can't conduct their business. There's so many people whose lives have been disrupted by this whole thing, and not just individuals but countries. Really feel for Queenstown at the moment. Obviously their tourism market is struggling pretty hard. There we need to open up those international borders again in order for them to really retain, or for those businesses to operate and keep afloat, and for Queenstown to retain its character, because it's not just Queenstown that gets affected, but it affects the whole New Zealand's bottom line. There's no easy way out of this situation. It's moving so quickly, and there's many different strategies that people have, but every strategy almost comes with its own pros and cons. So if you shut the borders then and keep everyone healthy, then the economy takes a hit. If you open the borders, there's a huge risk to everyone's health. So there is middle ground in between, and there's strategies like I've heard of this thing that Europe is doing called travel corridors. So depending on the risk of different countries, depends on whether you can travel between those countries, and there's different regulations around that, whether you need a vaccine, whether you need positive COVID tests to travel between the places. So there's ways around it. I guess New Zealand is so far out of the way that we have the option to completely shut shop to people or other countries and actually try and fend for ourselves for a little bit, except for those New Zealanders who are travelling in. So I know there's talks at the moment. I think the announcement is tomorrow for Australia opening up again to New Zealand and this trans-Tasman bubble. So we'll hold our breath for that to see what happens. I actually have mates who are in New Zealand at the moment who haven't been home for a whole year, and they're Australian. So yeah, hopefully they have good news, but yeah, everyone's affected. Everyone. Yeah, the government has a pretty tough job. Governments around the world are figuring this thing out on the go. Takes pretty strong leadership to get through this all. Yeah, there's the people I feel most for are those who have a family to actually provide for. It's easy enough, or you can fend for yourself a little bit if you're growing up and you can fend for yourself. But when you have dependents who look up to you and you have to provide for and put food on the table for, it's a lot harder. And a lot of these people have expenses that they need to meet, like mortgages and stuff like that. So it's pretty big stuff. Also, crazy news, we had tsunami warning the other week. Who would have thought a whole town's got evacuated in the middle of the night? Turns out it wasn't so bad. There was a huge earthquake, but good to know our systems actually work. There's this huge fear of tsunamis always hitting a island nation like New Zealand, but it sort of goes to the back of our mind because they're so infrequent. But when it does happen, everyone jumps up to high ground and make sure that they're all right, make sure that their community is good. So it was a good response overall, but it shows that our systems work, which is pretty cool. Everyone got rocking and rolling and moving up there. I think it's interesting when all these events happen at once, like over the last 12 months, and seeing how communities do come together, because it's not a natural thing for everyone around the world that the communities step up and help each other out. I think it's in a lot of places, but I don't think it's everywhere. And New Zealand is very lucky that it is one of the places that does happen. So yeah, that's the update from me. It's been about half an hour. I'm gonna cruise on out because there's a few things on my to-do list, namely study. Yeah, the thing about medicine is there's hard science in it, no doubt about it, but it's very constant. We have a lot of hours, and you just need to chip away at it. If you think of like the big task of doing a 5-year course, then it will drive you up the wall because there is a lot to do. But if you just chip away at it every day consistently, then you will get through. There's all the support in the world for it. for you to excel. You can take extra tutorials. There are lecturers who say, oh, come out for coffee and we can discuss certain concepts. So there are those support networks there, but you have to chip away at it. So Sundays, they're not a rest day. They're more of a reset day for the rest of the week, actually. So you get your work in line for the week, and when you come better prepared, you actually learn a lot more. So there's that aspect. Also, my timetable, what I've noticed about medicine is my timetable's been pretty full. So what normally happens in day to day is I get up at 6, sort out any admin early on. Sometimes I go to the gym, sometimes I go for a run, sometimes I just do a little bit of homework depending on what's going on for that day. But then 9 o'clock generally is when class starts, and it goes right through to 5 on your average day. Sometimes there's breaks depending on what's going on. If there are breaks, sometimes I rush home and have a quick sleep because I tend to work better by going through the morning and then having a lunch and having a sleep after that, and then working quite late. So I normally go bed around 11:30, and then get up at 6. And most of those hours are pretty full. So whether it's work, whether it's army, whether it's we also have whether it's homework for the course, whether it's just catching up with people who I need to catch up with. My days don't really stop. It just merges into one after another, which isn't a bad thing. A lot of people think I've been called a workaholic in the past, but I think work-life balance is a personal thing. We were discussing this actually the other day, where a lot of people, their whole dream is to work the 9 to 5 and sit on the beach and do their thing and have the weekends off, and that's cool. Some people are just wired all the time and they want to do stuff, get their hands dirty, and even when they're off the clock, they're thinking about stuff and they're actually on the clock because they're working on different things in the background. So I'm more of the latter option, but there's no perfect formula. I'm not perfect, that's for sure. But I think that this whole work-life balance thing shouldn't be imposed on people. That should be people need to figure out what's best for them and then roll with it. Sure, you need to work a little bit because you need income and everything, and so you can't just chill out the whole time. But then again, if you have someone who does like their rest and they're just going full noise 24/7 and they work 90-hour weeks, they're just going to burn out. So there's this balance here. There's people who like that life and don't like that life, but the main thing is figure it out for yourself and do what works for you. I also like having many things going on at once and not sticking to one thing, because if I just did one thing, I'd get bored, So and it wouldn't be enough for me. I need many segments in my life to actually make things interesting. Like if I only did medicine, I wouldn't be too happy. If I only did global games, I wouldn't be too happy. I need that separation. And then when I do work on those things, then I'm excited for it because it's new, it's different. It's a different way of thinking and doing things. So that's what works for me. That's why I do long hours. Also, physical activity is really important to me. So if I can get running, if I can get to the gym pretty much every day, if I can't every second day, then that's what keeps me rolling. Funnily enough, I was coming back from the gym last night and I bumped into a mate who was going for a run, and I said to him, "Oh, can I join you on your run?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." And I was like, "Where are we going?" He said, "I don't know, I'm just doing a little bit of an explore." So we went along the bays, and we probably 20 minutes into the run, half an hour into the run, we said, oh, let's just do a quick nav check. Where are we? Pull out Google Maps, see where we are. So we did, and we picked a spot further than where we were to run to, because then we could take this road and it would be a big loop. Turns out, to get to that spot, it was a 10K run. We didn't know it at the time. And to get back, it was another 10K. So spirit of the moment, turns out we did a half marathon last night, which was pretty mega. I'm pretty happy about that because I don't often get out and do these long runs. But it took us around, I don't know, 2.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. For those who are runners out there and are working out our speed, those times may be a little bit inaccurate, but it was good to get out and actually do a half marathon, because I never wake up and just think to myself, I might do a half marathon today. It's more when a spirit of the moment thing that you sort of fall into by mistake. So yeah, there's a bit of a side story, but point is, that's sort of what balances out my life. Everyone has their own thing. Some people like to do art. Some people like new experiences. Some people like reading. My thing is physical activity. Need it, love it, enjoy it. Try and do it once every 24 hours if I can. But that's all from me. That's the quick catch up. No one called in this time, but I'm hoping to jump on more frequently, because I've been offline for 4 months and I enjoy this, So if you know anyone who wants to have a yarn or wants to jump on the podcast, hit me up. Just do a direct message. I'll get in touch with you and we'll see what we can sort out. I'm sure I can find half an hour or 45 minutes to have a yarn and talk about things. But yeah, that's all from me. Hope everyone's having a great weekend, holding our breath for the big announcement. See if we can travel to Australia again. When's that going to happen? We'll find out tomorrow in the announcement. All right, guys, have an awesome weekend. Peace.